Cause my soul in grave to dwell shall not be left by thee. Nor wilt thou give thine Holy One corruption to see. Thou wilt me show the paths of life, of joy there is full store. Before thy face at thy right hand are pleasures evermore.
Father God, we thank you for this day. Thank you for the time we have come together for Bible study, for the Sabbath. It gives us the time to take away from work and things that we have. Thank you for the feast of the new moon that has come upon us. Thank you for the extra time we have to kind of wind down and meet with the brother in here soon. I ask that you would be with each and every one of us. Guide us into your word. Teach us from it. Help us understand it. Not just to have knowledge on it, but to make application of it. In Christ's name. So we're in Numbers 11. Number 11. Numbers 11. Very engaged. I have a Bible here. Would you like it? Ooh, yep. Numbers 11. Let's see what we got here. 35 chapters. Verses. We won't do that. 16. Yes. We could do. Someone's gonna have to do 17. Someone will have to do 18, right? Looking for a good break. Numbers, 11. Well, I guess somebody can read the first 15, and honestly, 16 down is another good break. So, Levi, you want to do 1 through 15 today? And Christian can follow up with that to the end.
All right, so 16 is the end?
Yeah.
All right.
When the people complained, it displeased the Lord, and the Lord heard it, and his anger was kindled, and the fire of the Lord burned among them, and consumed them that were in the uttermost parts of the camp. And the people cried unto Moses, and when Moses prayed unto the Lord, the fire was quenched, and he called the name of the place Taberah, because the fire of the Lord burned among them. And the midst of the multitude that was among them fell a lusting, and the children of Israel also wept again, and said, Who shall give us flesh to eat? We remember the fish which we did eat in Egypt freely, and cucumbers and melons, and the leeks, and the onions, and the garlic. But now our soul is dried away. There is nothing at all besides this manna before our eyes. And the manna was as coriander seed, and the color thereof as the color of bederum. And the people went about and gathered it, and ground it, mills or beat it in a mortar, and baked it in pans, and made cakes of it. And the taste of it was as the taste of fresh oil. And when the dew fell upon the camp in the night, the manna fell upon it. Then Moses heard the people weep throughout their families, and the anger of the Lord was kindled greatly. Moses also was displeased. And Moses said unto the Lord, Sovereign Lord, wherefore hast thou afflicted thy servant? And Wherefore have I not found favor in the sight, that thou layest the burden of all this people upon me? Have I conceived all this people? Have I begotten them, that thou shouldest say unto me, carry them in thy bosom, as a nursing father beareth the sucking child unto the land which thou swarest unto their father? Whence should I have flesh to give unto all this people? For they weep unto me, saying, give us flesh, that we may eat. I am not able to bear all this people alone, because it is too heavy for me. And if thou deal thus with me, kill me, I pray thee, out of hand, if I have found favor in thy sight, and let me not see my wretchedness.
And the Lord said unto Moses, gather unto me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom thou knowest to be elders of the people, and officers over them, and bring them unto the tabernacle of the congregation, that they may stand there with thee. And I will come down and talk with thee there, and I will take of the Spirit which is upon thee, and will put it upon them, and they shall bear the burden of the people with thee, that thou bear it not thyself alone. And say thou unto the people, sanctify yourselves against tomorrow, and ye shall eat flesh. For ye have wept in the ears of the Lord, saying, who shall give us flesh to eat? For it is well with us in Egypt. Therefore the Lord will give you flesh, and ye shall eat. You shall not eat 1 day, nor 2 days, nor 5 days, neither 10 days, nor 20 days, but even a whole month, until it comes out of your nostrils, and it be loathsome unto you, because that ye have despised the Lord which is among you, and have wept before him, saying, why came we forth out of Egypt? And Moses said, the people among whom I am are 600,000 footmen, and thou hast said, I will give them flesh, that they may eat a whole month. Shall the flocks and the herds be slain for them to suffice them? Or shall all the fish of the sea be gathered together for them to suffice them? And the Lord said unto Moses, is the Lord's hand waxed short? Thou shalt see now whether my word shall come to pass unto thee or not. And Moses went out and told the people the words of the Lord, and gathered the 70 men of the elders and of the people, and set them around about the tabernacle. And the Lord came down in a cloud, and spake unto him, and took of the Spirit that was upon him, and gave it unto the 70 elders. And it came to pass that when the Spirit rested upon them, they prophesied and did not cease. But there remained 2 of the men in the camp. The name of one was Eldad, and the name of the other was Medad. And the Spirit rested upon them, and they were of them that were written, but went not out unto the tabernacle, and they prophesied in the camp. And there ran a young man and told Moses, and said, Eldad and Medad do prophesy in the camp. And Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of Moses, one of his young men, answered and said, my lord Moses, forbid them. And Moses said unto him, enviest thou for my sake? Would God that all the Lord's people were prophets, and that the Lord would put his Spirit upon them. And Moses gat him into the camp, he and the elders of Israel.
All right.
You don't want me to read the rest?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay, because there's still like 4 or 5 verses or something. And there went forth a wind from the Lord, and brought quails from the sea, and let them...
I'm just, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I'm in agreement as I'm listening.
Oh, I see.
Thinking about something.
I got you.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're all good. And let them fall by the camp, as it were a day's journey on this side, and as it were a day's journey on the other side, round about the camp, as it were 2 cubits high upon the face of the earth. And the people stood up all that day, and all that night, and all the next day, and they gathered the quails. He that gathered least gathered 10 homers, and they spread them all abroad for themselves round about the camp. And while the flesh was yet between their teeth, ere it was chewed, the wrath of the Lord was kindled against the people, and the Lord smote the people with a very great plague. And he called the name of that place Kibroth Hattaavah, because there they buried the people that lusted. And the people journeyed from Kibroth Hattaavah unto Hazeroth and abode at Hazeroth.
Yeah, the Septuagint translation actually has that Kibroth Hattaavah translated out in its translation, and it literally translates it out to the graves of lust. It doesn't give it a Hebrew name. It just says the name of that place was called the Graves of Lust. I was just kind of reading through that with you, and it struck me. Well, let's go back to the beginning here and see if we get through it or not. It's okay if we don't. It's a lot to cover.
Yeah, well, I'm looking it up right now, and that's what the Hebrew word means. The Hebrew word is graves of lust.
Yeah.
So it must be like two words in one, and one is grave and one is lust.
Right, yeah. Yeah. Well, so we're going to have to get into some interesting discussion here. It's worth talking about, I guess. Nobody really likes to talk about it. So. But it'd probably be good to kind of like focus so it doesn't just look like we're passing the buck off over onto the mixed multitude, which eventually is going to come into focus, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But you can see that the people complain first, right? In verse 1, it displeases the Lord. The Lord, He hears, His anger is kindled, the fire of God falls. That's the reason the place is going to be called Taberah, which Berah is the Hebrew word for fire, or a Hebrew word for burning, consuming with fire. And so it's eventually called, that's the name of it after that, because the Lord is literally sending a burning fire among them to consume the people. And how that all works, I don't know. There's not a ton of information that tells you about exactly if that was like fire falling from heaven, lightning, lots of fire accidents with fire happening. Who knows, but wildfires, who knows how that works. But it's interesting that people are complaining and displeasing the Lord, and it tells us that. And it says the people cry to Moses, and Moses prays to Yahweh, and the fire is quenched. And so whatever happens there, Moses is able to entreat the Lord on behalf of the people. And then they name the place, right, because the fire burned among them, verse 3. But then we're followed up immediately afterwards that it was this mixed multitude that's among them that fell lusting. And so the whole story after this, it's kind of pinned on the mixed multitude being mixed into the people. Now, it says the children have also wept again and said, who will give us flesh to eat? So it does definitely tell you that from the beginning of this particular situation, there is a mixed multitude. There are people there that are mixed. And the Hebrew word is aspasuf, or something to that effect. I'm pretty sure that's the right, pretty close pronunciation. Aspasuf, and it's a compound word. And it literally kind of means like gathered together, gathered up or something. And in the Greek, it's interesting because the same word is consistently used here, epimiktos, which you can kind of hear the common root word for the word mix that we use, mik, in there. And so it's epimiktos, and it literally means mixed up. Epi, up, miktos, mixed up. And it is the word used in Exodus 12:38. It's the same Greek word used, which is the mixed multitude mentioned there, again, that came out of Egypt with Israel, following behind the cattle. And then that Hebrew word is the word Arab, though, which is the word we're more accustomed to seeing in the Bible in Hebrew. And so in the Greek, there's no differentiation between the two words. They just translate it mixed up both times. In the Hebrew, they use two different words. It seems like what the difference is in the Hebrew concept is that in Exodus 12:38, if you want to go there, Exodus 12:38 says a mixed multitude went up also with them. Now, like I said, that word is the word Arab. Now, the word Arab is Hebrew, or Oreb, however you want to pronounce it. Those vowels pretty much float. It literally means mixed, and it is the word for evening. So evening, the daylight becomes dark, And so it's a mixture of daylight with darkness. So evening's not dark, it's not light, it's both, it's mixed. So it's the same concept that's being conveyed to us. It's, hey, how you think of evening? It's light mixed with dark. It gives you a very clear understanding in the word Arab that this is probably referring to a darker racial population coming up behind Israel when they're leaving Egypt. In other words, they've got people clinging to the tailcoats who are like, hey, you guys are getting out of here. We're going to get out of here with you. And seemingly this is the same group. But now the new Hebrew word that's being used here to describe them, while there's enough evidence that definitely suggests it's the same group of people, it seems like the problem is the people, some of these people have been kind of not separated. There's an admixture taking place of some sort, whether that means mixed race people had somehow been flying under the radar, or whether it just means the congregation has become too close to one another and bad things are happening on account of it. Kind of like the modern day, you have a lot of, as soon as you get people mixed up like that in non-integrated societies, people complain. I didn't get enough. I ride in the back of the bus. All that kind of stuff, right? People, there's an inequality. The majority of you guys are this way, and we're not. And so there's an obvious thing happening here, and Israel did not entirely tell these people apparently to beat it immediately. They tolerated them for a period of time. But yet the problem here is developing even more. Nehemiah 13:3 uses the same Greek word, epimiktos, when it tells us that they separated from Israel all the mixed multitude. Same word.
So, Josh, just for clarification, epimiktos is used in Numbers 11, Exodus 12, and this Nehemiah 13.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, because I looked up the Hebrew word for mixed multitude, and
it's Arab twice, and that other word.
Well, we did other words, and so I now they didn't quote their sources, so whoever wrote this little write-up where they're getting it from, I'm not sure, but they said that most likely it is a derogatory word. It's just probably saying like nigger, it's like
mongrel, how people perceive that.
Yeah, it's like so if that's true, although I don't know where they're getting that information, if it's a slang type of derogatory word.
It would be interesting to know how they would press that.
Where's their evidence for that?
I think I saw that in a Strong's suggestion, but I didn't mention it because Thayer's one of the two said something. I was like, well, how you can prove that for now? So,
yeah.
Not enough information.
That's what I'm saying. They didn't quote some ancient source, but I could definitely see how it could be interchangeable with Arab.
And it is. I mean, the translator Septuagint apparently didn't see enough difference to change the word.
Right.
So that's the one way we know that we're talking in those three specific instances. Nehemiah 13, they separate from these people. Numbers 11, these people cause murmuring. Exodus 12, these people come out kind of with the baggage. And, it says in Exodus 12, mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, very much cattle. There's a possibility that they were slaves to the Israelites. They were another class of slave, perhaps. That's a possibility. I'm not going to say it's not. Because in the Passover laws, there is a law that does specifically say if a person's bought with money, he can eat of the Passover too. The only slaves you would have in Egypt, seemingly, would probably not be your own brethren, because they're already slaves of the Egyptians. You'd have some kind of slaves that were even of a lesser class than that. So there's that theory out there as well as to how the mixed multitude got there. Were they there legally? Were they there illegally? Were they border jumpers? That question's not answered. But I think reasonably, Moses is sitting here. He's reigning and ruling as a king in Jeshurun. So obviously a lot of wickedness has happened in Israel. So that's not to say this couldn't be wickedness. But it seems like whatever got this involved would have had to have been something legal. What got them there was not just Moses ignoring what's happening in the world. So there was probably a lawful reason. So America, how did we get slaves, dark slaves and strangers in the country. We brought them in as servants. And then the servants were pretty much got liberated and they got problems, or they broke away or whatever. I would tend to think if you could make a case for anything, it would probably be that case. It would be that they came up as servants. A few of them came with them because people may not like this, and I'm not trying to be mean necessarily, but it does put the mixed multitude in Exodus 12:38 with the cattle. They're chattel. They're owned. So there's a high likelihood the reason they're being numbered in that way is because they're part of the property. And I know our world doesn't like that kind of stuff, but that's just the word cattle we use today for cows is literally chattel in French. It means you owned property, and that's why we call it chattel slavery.
Well, and I mean also it clearly it makes a distinction between the Israelite and the mixed multitude. I mean, even when we were reading Deuteronomy 15 this morning, it says, I got it right here, if thy brother, and then puts the clause as to what thy brother is,
and here's
a Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman.
Right. Yeah.
And so there's just always the distinction.
Oh, yeah. So you definitely have these things we have to tie together to ask the question in Numbers 11. This is a Numbers 11 Bible study. And it's sandwiched, like I said, in the Septuagint right between the two. You've got Nehemiah, people separating to purify the camp. Exodus 12, we have them coming up out of the land, so to speak.
Where is the one where you said the cattle and the
Exodus 12:38.
Oh, okay, I was about to say, because what is in Numbers 11?
And then there are some people who just say that basically this is an Arab multitude of people that just hung out around Israel. They were not in the camp, but hey, they don't have a defined border at this time, so it's kind of like people just hanging out with the people and getting what they, trading with them or whatever. It could also be, and they're too mixed in. There's several theories if you read commentaries on whether they were part of the camp, external of the camp, how they got there, why they're there in the first place. But here's kind of the principle of the matter. And all Scripture is given for instruction, reproof, and instruction in righteousness. The man of God may be thoroughly furnished unto all good works. So here's what it teaches us. The mixed multitude that was among them fell lusting, and the children of Israel also. Just stopping the statement there before we go into what happens next. This is kind of an inevitable situation. Whoever these people are, however they got there, whether they're on the outskirts of the camp, you can take whatever opinion you want, whether they are just a little too close for comfort, whether they are the servants of another race that are there mixed in. They start lusting. They start wanting more. They start coveting things that aren't theirs or more than they need. And the people do that. Now, put this in application in every situation you can. I highly doubt the people on the outside. Let's say there's just a whole other group of people, just like a big Arab tribe that's following Israel around trying to get their out scourings, right? That doesn't make, to me, a whole lot of sense how their lusting would then affect Israel. But it could. Your neighbors could always affect you. On the other hand, if you have servant class people that are intermingled and they are complaining they are not getting enough to their masters, the master may very well feel like, well, I don't have enough to provide. This is Moses' fault. And then the complaining starts again. Same thing a child does. You've seen those bratty kids. I don't let them exist in my home. I tell them they got to shut up. But you get these bratty kids. They don't got enough. They're not happy. They want a toy in the grocery store. They got to have cake every day for dinner or cookies or something. They're never satisfied. They're spoiled. And some parents feel like, well, I just don't give my kids enough because I don't got the money to give them a toy every time I go to the store. It's like, what are you talking about? Same situation if you've got a master-servant relationship going on. If the servants are complaining and whining they don't got enough because they're on the bottom of the order, then the master feels responsible because he's a good master. And so who's he going to blame? Well, he starts crying to Moses, and that's what happens. It says, then he wept again, and he said, who shall give us flesh to eat? So the whole argument is about eating meat. It's about flesh. Back in the old days, in Old English, flesh was meat, the muscle of animal. And meat was bread, actually. And so the actual argument is not that we don't have enough manna. It's that we don't have enough flesh. We don't have enough to eat. We don't have enough to eat. And the other thing I would say that may make this a quite possible servant class argument, is that proteins obviously needed to do the hard work. So if there is a servant class that's intermingled into Israel at this time, and they're the ones doing the grumbling, maybe they're not feeling strong enough to do the jobs they're supposed to do. Hey, we're servants, we need fed. You've got to provide for your servants, and that's God's law. So there's that to consider, that's the case. And so what's the first thing they start saying? People start complaining. We remember the fish which we did eat in Egypt freely, and the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic. And so now, you can just hear them. They're just like really getting into this, They're like, there used to be just free fish everywhere. It's a desert. No, there wasn't. Like, you can tell, right away that there was no free fish sitting in pots for people to freely eat. So there's an exaggeration already going on. The people are exaggerating it. They're saying in Egypt where we were all slaves. Now just think about this for a minute. This is one of the reasons I side with the fact that I think these were probably some type of servant people that were following Israel. Because the first thing that then comes up is, what about going back to Egypt? What about us becoming slaves too? What about Israel going back? In other words, we could all be slaves again. That kind of puts you all in the same category. There's also a possibility, there's a possibility that the type of exaggeration that's going on here, that maybe when they were doing workloads and stuff like that things were just easier to come by and it was more available. And if the masters were providing quote unquote free fish for the people, in other words, they're doing all of the fishing and the stuff, making sure they have food to eat in order to keep them strong, then it seems free to the lesser class people. And so some people would blame this argument on the Israelites. This is what the Israelites said in the wilderness. I'm not so sure that's the case. It sounds like the mixed multitude is the one who's leading this argument. You remember how we were better taken care of in Egypt. We had cucumbers, we had melons and leeks and onions and garlic. But now our soul is dried away, and there is nothing at all besides this manna, this food that God gives us from heaven. I mean, geez, the worst stuff in the world. And the manna was as coriander seed. The color of it was the color of bdellium. It's a pretty weird word, bdellium. It's a type of stone. And it says it's the color of pearl, so basically very pale white bread. And the people went about, they gathered it up on the ground. That's actually what we talked about in Exodus 16. They milled it just like they did bread, beat it in a mortar, baked it in a pan, made it into cakes, and the taste of it was the taste of like fresh oil. So you can imagine if you're eating something that tastes like fresh olive oil all the time, it's probably not horribly great for these sensations. However, I guarantee you whatever manna was, there's a lot of theories out there. They try to naturalize it. It seems like it's angel's food according to the Bible when I read it. It probably had everything you needed to live life. It probably gave you all the things that you were needing. I'm sure God didn't give you an insufficient diet based on a miracle. So it really didn't really turn into the fact that the people did not have nourishment. It was that the people didn't have what they wanted. They wanted their melons. They wanted their garlic. They wanted their onions. They wanted their fish. They wanted that kind of stuff. They wanted flavor. And so the manna was not probably the problem. God's not going to give an insufficient miracle. However, God decides He's going to satisfy everybody with what they need. So the mixed multitude starts the complaining. It trickles up into the Israelites. The Israelites are recognized as obviously the citizens of everything. They're bringing then the complaints to Moses. Moses is saying, well, you guys got manna. They're like, manna's not good enough. We need better. We need flesh. This is the whole reason why I think it makes sense that it's probably a working people that are thinking, I need what I'm used to eating. I need flesh to eat. Moses heard the people weep throughout all their families, it says. Throughout all their families. And that's kind of an interesting statement there, that every family, all families, this is the Mishpal Call, family class, and sometimes it's translated kindred. Strong says it can mean a class of people, a species of people, a sort of people, a tribe of people, a family or a kindred. So no matter who you're talking about, they're all complaining. Okay? The mixed multitudes are complaining, the mixed folk are complaining, and the Israelites are complaining. And then it says, every man in the door of his own tent, and then the anger of Yahweh gets even more kindled. And Moses also is getting ticked now. King James says displeased. And so Moses says unto Yahweh, wherefore hast thou afflicted your servant, and wherefore have I not found favor in your sight, that you lay this burden of all this people upon me? And so now Moses is, honestly, I'll be honest, when I read this part of the Bible, I cringe every time. Like, how do you talk to God like that? You know, like, Moses must have really had a really great relationship with the Lord. Because there's, you know, my wife's the only one who can talk to me certain ways, and she can only go so far. But if somebody talked to me like this, it's like, who are you talking to? And so it had to be someone he loved pretty much to even let him talk like that to him. You know, it'd be the equivalent of your wife saying to you, you know, you gave me all these children. You know, help me feed them. You know, I'm not saying you say that. She's shaking her head. I'm not saying that you say that. I'm just saying that would be the equivalent. It would be the equivalent of a wife saying, well, you gave me the children, now feed them. And that's what he says. He says, you know, you're the one that gave me all these. And he actually even uses that language. He says, and Moses says unto Yahweh, wherefore hast thou afflicted your servant, and wherefore have I not found favor? Now that word favor could just as well be translated grace in your sight, that you would lay the burden of all this people upon me. Have I conceived all this people? Have I gotten them, that thou shouldest say unto me, carry them in your bosom, as a nursing father, there isn't even such thing, bears the sucking child unto the land which thou swearest to their fathers. So, I mean, Moses is really, he's like, listen, I'm a man, I don't give suck to children, you know, he's really putting the argument out there like, this is something you got to do. And it sounds like Moses is really kind of mistaking it. And I'm sure that, you know, this is just a general ministry problem in general. Every man has to go through it. When you have complaints going on, you know, you want to blame God for what the people need blamed for. What they really need is, and Moses is always, you know, he's getting ready to get stoned sometimes. But Moses really needs to do is give them hell, literally. And that's exactly what ends up happening. Fire falls again. But, you know, Moses needs to set down the law and just be like, we got problems in the camp. First problem, mixed multitude. Second problem, you guys are murmuring. Third problem, you need to be obedient. Fourth problem, you do have something to eat. Now go eat it. Problem is you're talking to grown men, you're talking to old men, you're talking to people who I'm not going to be talked to as a child. I'm not going to be treated this way. You're dealing with that same mentality that you're going to deal with anywhere, in any job, any situation. And obviously what Moses is going through is trying to figure out how to be the proper leader that he's called to be with people who don't want to listen, who would rather murmur, who would rather blame him, who would rather say this is all your fault. And he goes to the Lord and he lays down his complaint. On one hand, you know, these are one of those verses that make a lot of sense because you really shouldn't, when you go to God in prayer, you really shouldn't lie to him. If you feel this way, he already knows you feel that way in your heart. So there's no good reason not to tell God these types of things. Like actually saying, you know, this is how I feel. This is how it feels to me. This is how, you know, what do you want me to do? That's how I pray to God. Because I know if I'm actually feeling that way in my heart, but there's no use hiding it. And so as he's praying to the Lord, he's making supplication for his situation. He then says, how am I going to, verse 13, whence should I have flesh to give unto all this people? Or, you know, where am I going to get it from? For they weep unto me, saying, give us flesh that we may eat. And I am not able to bear all this people alone, because it is too heavy for me. And so here's Moses, like letting the Lord know, like, I got all these people. These guys are heavy. You know, I can only imagine what it'd be like to deal with this many people who don't like you occasionally, and then like you when you give them something. It would be pretty tough. And he just doesn't know how to deal with it. And if thou deal thus with me, here's where I really like him. It's like, what? He's like, just kill me. I don't even have to be here anymore. He's like, if this is how it's got to be, just kill me. And I'm sure Moses meant it. He says, I pray thee, out of hand, if I have found favor in your sight, let me then not see my wretchedness. So he's basically like, okay, I know I've probably been the one who screwed up, because Moses was a master of, he knew his theology, he knew about total depravity. He knew about all that stuff, so he knew he was wretched somehow, and he was just like, just kill me. I failed. Okay, get it over with. I'm done. And I could certainly understand the way he feels about that at certain points. And what's the Lord say? The Lord says to Moses, gather unto me 70 men of the elders. So they gather the elders of Israel. The Zakwin is the word in the Hebrew that's used. So once again, why does this appear in the book of Numbers? Why do we keep making a point of that? Well, in the book of Numbers, we constantly have to be reminded that this is the numbering of the people into tribes. It's the numbering of the families. It's the numbering of the clans. It's the numbering of all the people. The elders are brought up because, well, this is part of the numbering process. And the mixed multitudes brought up because, well, they were excluded from the congregation of Israel. They weren't technically Israelites. So all these things actually fit into the book of Numbers, this complaint, this argument, into this chapter for these reasons. And so the 70 men who are the elders, the presbyters, and the zakwin in the Hebrew of Israel are gathered together by Moses. And he says, whom thou knowest to be elders of the people. That's interesting. He says, gather the ones that you know are doing their job well. That's why the doubled language is used usually in Hebrew. When you have a doubling of the language, I'm just going to check to see that words there out of curiosity. See if he doubles it in the Greek also. Yeah. So he doubles it, the word presbyteros 2 times. And the officers over them, so he'd be referring to the Levites that work beside them, the lawyers, so to speak, and bring them up to the tabernacle of the congregation that they may stand beside thee. So it's interesting that when God decides he's going to adjudge this situation and speak about it and tell them what he's going to do about it, he's not going to reserve it to Moses alone. He's actually going to bring the representatives of the national church together. And when they come together with Moses, he's going to tell them exactly what they've done wrong. He's going to tell them what he's going to do to appease them. And everybody's going to have a better understanding because this is a national situation. Moses is not a king in the sense that, like, I'm a monarch. You deal with me, you deal with everyone. No, you got to deal with the whole congregation. Moses is only functioning as the pastor, so to speak, among the elders. And I will come down, I will talk with thee there, and I will take of the Spirit which is upon thee, and I will put it upon them, and they shall bear the burden of the people with thee, that thou bear it not thyself alone. Now this is interesting because, you have to go back and you have to consider Deuteronomy chapter 1. The judges are appointed to judge the people for this reason. Exodus chapter 18, the same thing is stated. In this text, though, it's very interesting. God is literally taking the Spirit, as he calls it, the Spirit of judgment, and giving a greater portion now to the eldership to help him judge the people better. In other words, it sounds like what he's saying is the judges, the elders that judge, are not doing enough judgment among their own people. So when you think about it, think about a funnel, right? Moses is the little hole in the funnel. And you pour sand into a funnel, or sugar or whatever into a funnel. Pour it too fast, it hits that hole and it clogs up, right? So that's happening to Moses. Moses is like, this is too much for me. I can't handle it all. It's too much. So what God does is he gets a funnel with a bunch of different heads on it and pours it down there that way so that it's dispersed more. And it's not just all hitting one hole. It's hitting multiple holes. And that's what he wants to happen. So he takes that Spirit, so he doesn't have to bear them alone. That's the same language you find elsewhere. So this sounds like a doubling of what has already occurred. So there's already a system of judgment, but
they need more Holy Spirit. Right? The Bible says that when it talks of Jesus Christ, it says that he was given the Spirit without measure. So there was he had as much as he, more than enough, no end, obviously. But man has an amount of Spirit given to them, and so God dispenses more Spirit to those when they need it. And so these men need more of God's Spirit to help them do their job and bear the burdens. And he says, "Say to this people, sanctify yourselves against the morrow, and you will eat flesh. And you, as you have wept in the ears of the Lord, saying, who shall give us flesh to eat? For it was well with us in Egypt. Therefore the Lord will give you flesh, and you will eat." You can see God's sarcasm. That's the best word I can come up with. Maybe there's a better word that would be more negative sounding than that. Because in reality, he's like, oh, you thought you had it good in Egypt, huh? You don't like liberty. He's definitely speaking to them in a rough way. And he says, "Ye shall not eat 1 day, nor 2 days, nor 5 days, neither 10 days, nor 20 days, but a whole month, until it comes out of your nostrils. And it'll be loathsome to you, because that you have despised the Lord which is among you, and you have wept before him, saying, why came we forth out of Egypt? And Moses said, the people among whom I am are 600,000 footmen." He's like, there's a huge army of men. He's just talking about the guys.
That's a lot of people.
And he's like, there's a lot of people to feed, God. Have you figured, this is the reason why Moses is like, his humanity is like all over Numbers 11. Because the way he talks to the Lord, it's almost like he's forgetting at times that he's sovereign and knows everything. It's just the dialogue is like a man speaks with his friend, which is Moses is the only person God says he's done that with. And that's exactly what you find in the Bible. It's kind of an amazing story, really, just from that angle.
Well, not only is it that so many people, but it's they're in the desert. They don't have homes. They're living in tents. I can't imagine the conditions being the greatest, And on top of that, they only have one type of food. So, if you have, even if you had half the amount, 300,000 people complaining, that's a lot of people complaining.
Well, and that's what he says.
and also, I don't know how prevalent mutiny was,
Well, it sounds like he battled with it pretty regularly in the Exodus.
So, there's definitely, mutinies been going on for literally ever, and so, that's probably in the back of his mind too. It's not just, we're having a strong disagreement. It's like, I'm surrounded by 600,000 men with swords, or even if only half of them had swords,
600,000 men. With no swords.
600,000 men with not one sword. It's like, that's 1,200,000 fists,
It's be pretty hard quick. And so he says, I will give them flesh that they may eat a whole month. And then Moses continues on with the Lord. He says, shall the flocks and herds be killed for them? Because they left Egypt with their flocks and herds, right? So he's saying, should we kill everything that we have for them to suffice them? Can all the fish of the sea be gathered together? Now you can start hearing the sarcasm here, to suffice them. He's like, here he goes again. And the Lord says to Moses, is Yahweh's hand waxed short? You shall now know whether my word shall come to pass upon thee or not. And if I remember right, the Septuagint translates that, whether my word shall overtake thee or not. And Moses went out and he told the people the words of Yahweh, and gathered the 70 men of the elders of the people, and he set them round about the tabernacle. And Yahweh came down in a cloud, and he spake unto him, and he took of the spirit that was upon him, and he gave it unto the 70 elders. So there's literally a spirit transferal taking place of some sort. And it came to pass that when the Spirit rested upon them, that they began to prophesy, and they did not cease. But there remained 2 of the men in the camp. The name of the one was Eldad, the name of the other was Medad. And the Spirit rested upon them, and they were of them that were written. In other words, they were written, meaning they were written as elders. So there was a roll of elders of some sort. There was a written paper for eldership. But went not out unto the tabernacle, and they prophesied in the camp. So what's being spoken is this Eldad and Medad. They didn't come to the meeting. Who knows why? Maybe they were unclean for some reason. Maybe they had some other reason. They're sick. Maybe they had the flu. I don't know. But God does not say, hey, you didn't show up. You're not getting the Spirit. God gives them the Spirit too. And then this amazing thing takes place because they are written among the elders. And God drops His Spirit down on them, and here they are prophesying in the camp. They get found out, preaching basically and speaking the words of the Lord in the camp. And some young man who's there, one of the younger men, came and told Moses, and Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of Moses, and one of his young men. So you've got men who are not elders that are being spoken of that ran into the camp. I would classify these as they are numbered men, not counted elders among them. And ran out now, and also I will say, just in passing, we'll get into this more as we go into the study more, but 70 elders of Israel were a select council for the top echelon of decision making. So there's that to be stated also. These guys run up, they tell Joshua, they tell Moses, and Moses is saying, hey, Lord Moses, forbid these people from speaking. Tell them to shut their mouth. They didn't come to the council. They didn't come to the meeting. And Moses, he says, are you envious because of me? He's like, you can tell the tone of Moses' voice. He is relieved that the Spirit of God has just been dumped out on the eldership. And that would definitely be a great thing to happen in any church, the national church especially, who's having these types of problems, that the Lord's Spirit is now going to be multiplied among the people so that they are going to be as prophets to the Lord and be able to also speak the word of the Lord like Moses. And so the Lord would put His Spirit upon them as an exclamation. He says, would God that all the Lord's people were prophets, and that the Lord would put His Spirit upon them. And so that's a really fascinating, great statement. That, we know it's not true. Not everybody gets that Spirit put upon them in that way. But Moses was not hungry for being the only guy to have the spirit of judgment. He wanted everybody to be able to participate. And that's definitely the way a church should function. That's how people should feel. Moses gat him into the camp, he and the elders of Israel, and there went forth a wind from Yahweh. And it's very interesting that the word wind and the word spirit in Hebrew are connected words. There's really no difference in them. And he brought quail from the sea, so the type of meat has been selected, the type of flesh has been selected. It is a bird, a quail, and let him fell by the camp, and as it were a day's journey on this side, and as it were a day's journey on that side. So what it's saying is, like, if you were standing in the middle, you could walk for a day, and there'd be dead birds, or there'd be birds for you to hunt, however that worked. I doubt they were dead, because if they fell out of the sky, they'd be like dying of itself. So I'm sure they were just like nested on the ground or something, and the people still had to kill them. You don't eat birds with blood, so that's how you have to do it. And then on the other side, so there's a ton of birds, is what's being said. There's just a gigantic amount of birds. Remember any turkeys? Grouse?
So many that you walk outside and everywhere you shoot,
and still kill turkey. I think those was turkeys.
I thought they were smaller birds.
Yeah, Emma's mentioning that in American history we have a similar situation where there was a time recorded where birds were just everywhere and people just ate birds. Just fed on birds. I think that's in the Light and the Glory, isn't it? Yeah. And let them fall by the camp, as it were a day's journey, this side and that side, round about the camp, and as it were 2 cubits high upon the face of the earth. That's a lot of bird. But that's a lot of men. So you got to feed a lot of men with a lot of bird. And the people stood up all that day and all that night and all the next day, and they gathered the quail. And he that gathered least gathered 10 homers, and he that spread them all abroad for themselves round about the camp. And while the flesh was yet between their teeth, and they're eating it, the wrath of Yahweh was kindled against the people, and the Lord smote the people with a very great plague, some people say it was it's probably quail virus. Yeah. Bird flu. Yeah. There was a great plague, H1N1, and he called the name of that place Kibroth-Hattaavah, or the graves of lusting, because there they buried the people that lusted. And the people journeyed from Kibroth-Hattaavah unto Hazeroth and abode in Hazeroth. And so that's the end of the chapter. But there's other scriptures that tell us that while the flesh was yet between their teeth, they began to complain again. They started murmuring again. Psalm 78, 30 and 31, I believe, it says, they were not estranged from their lust, but while their meat was yet in their mouths, the wrath of God came upon them and slew the fattest of them and smote them down, the chosen of the men of Israel. So beware of being fat. The lust will get you every time. Fat people take heed, you know. Psalm 106, 14 and 15 gives commentary. It says, lusted exceedingly in the wilderness and tempted God in the desert, and he gave them their request, but sent leanness into their souls. So they still weren't satisfied by the things that God would give them and allow them to enjoy. And so I guess I can understand why, eating, I don't know how much that long quail would last. I do, because it says a month. He gave them food for a month in one day. He dropped all these down, so they probably dried it out. They had to dry it like jerky, salt it in order to preserve it, and they're eating it fresh right away. I'm sure a month of that you'd get a little bit like, all right, I eat this and this. But think about it. Here's another miracle. Here's God giving you everything you need. You already got manna. Manna's still coming, so now you got free. You've got the best welfare conditions. God is dropping. Other than the fact that welfare today gives it to you free, and you don't even got to leave your house. It comes in the mail, and you had to go gather it back then. There's one difference. America would not go for this welfare program, but this is
variety.
Yeah, more variety also. But what this is God's way. I'm okay. You're in the wet wilderness. There's not a lot around here. I'll take care of you. And He gives it to them, and then they start complaining. So, it's. I guess my point, what I'm trying to make, this has actually been a fun Bible study. But the point I'm trying to make is that fatness and welfare go hand in hand.
I'm
according to the two Psalms.
I'm looking at all the times that this Hebrew word is used, and it definitely can refer to a fact.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's what it's saying. There were some people that just stuffed themselves.
Well, yeah, because some of it says, it depending on the context, the fatness.
It could mean healthy or something.
Healthy or rich, but there's about definitely 2 times, maybe even 3 times, where it's referring to a fat person.
Like
No. This one is the other time it's used where it's referring to animal sacrifices. It says, therefore shall the Lord of hosts, send among His fat ones leanness.
So it definitely means to be bigger.
Yeah, and
well, that's also what it said in the one other psalm too. It says they had leanness in their soul, fatness in their, like food to eat, but they didn't help them out.
they want more when you love things through.
Well, that's the thing is, it's like you got stuff for free. How can you complain? God's dropping stuff from heaven for crying out loud. That's like, and He already told you that manna has all that you need. You don't need anything else.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, when they left Egypt, they're crying about those leaks.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
That's what I'm saying. It never ends.
They want flavor.
Yeah, they want variety. Seriously consider what it would be like today, with everybody's luxuries from every edge of every portion of the sea and land, and all the spices that we have, all the
mangoes from the south.
Fruits everywhere, and then God just says, listen, you're going to eat quail and you're going to eat manna, and that's it. There would be some serious, horribly, grumbling from people. Just on that alone.
especially when God's getting sacrifices still. He's getting to eat lambs and beefs and all the good stuff with the sacrifices. They probably are a little bit like, but that's and the priests that's probably true. The priests probably had, since they got portions,
they would have gotten more variety of meat.
Kind of shows you how some of the multitude probably was upset with Moses for being a Levite too. There might have been a little bit of clan antagonism going on, tribal antagonisms going on as well. It's also interesting that when he numbers the amount of people that he got to take care of, he knows the amount. So it's interesting. Moses' mind immediately goes to, I know the number of people here, because they've been numbered now. We have a number for them. And it's also interesting, in order for God to deal with them, he calls the elders of the people, of the numbered people, and says, deal with your people. Here's how you're going to deal with them. And so, like I said, I didn't want to spend a ton of extra time on the mixed multitude aspect, but you can't really read this without realizing that's a big part of the situation. Like, God could have left that out, and he didn't. He made sure to let us know that that's something that happened and caused problems. And once again, we're taking examples out of these things, and so you don't want to have mumbling and murmuring and stuff like that. Limit your mixed multitude population, and if you've got that situation, it has to be managed very strictly. And if you don't, you're going to end up getting mutinized, overthrown. Things are going to get out of order. So. And then the native population is going to just be the murmuring people. So that's what you got there. I think we'll be able to roll this over into the next chapter, but we'll save that obviously for the next chapter. We get to deal with the great subject of Miriam and the Ethiopian woman. Got a good Ethiopian yoga chap right now too, by the way. But coffee. But
that was a good cup of coffee.
That was Rwandan, but that's a good one too. I actually like it better, but that's why I served it today. But I got some of that, but we'll get a chance to actually deal with the exact subject matter rather than the one Ken Ham and other people have propagated for the last 40 years about this being a black woman, and that's not the case, because that would kind of go a little bit against what we just talked about, wouldn't it? Be kind of strange.
Yeah, words mixed multitude.
So we'll have to cover that, which we'll do next Sabbath.